And we will send you the recording and the slides afterwards. So please feel free to refer back to this session, share it with anyone who is not able to join today's webinar. Hopefully it'll be helpful and you'll have everything you need to prepare you for this year's application period for Green Lease Leaders. So that is our goal today. We're going to be going over the 2024 application. We've got just a couple of new things, nothing dramatic. We didn't make any dramatic changes, but we've done some improvements that we're really hoping that you will find really valuable. So we're also going to talk about a couple of new resources. And we're going to go over like the timeline because we want to make sure everybody's clear on how we're doing the timeline this year. And then, of course, answer any questions. Please feel free to put questions in the chat throughout the webinar. We're going to answer as many as we can. We'll answer them both in real time, and then we'll get to some as we do have Q&A time at the end. So drop those questions in. Don't hesitate. All right, so we want to introduce the Green Lease Leaders team. Most of you know that we partner at IMT with the Department of Energy on this program. And so this is the whole team that runs the entire program. I'm Marla Thalheimer, Senior Director of Business Engagement Team at IMT, and I'm joined today by Ella Wetletson, who's the Manager of Business Engagement. And together we're going to be taking you through today's information. And many of you may know Diana Lee, and you see her name everywhere, and she will return from maternity leave in January and be back working on this program. So we miss Diana, but we're super happy for her during this very special time. All right, so everybody ready to jump in? This is a really special year for Green Lease Leaders because it's hard to believe, but it's the 10th year of the program. So we're super excited about this application cycle. And as I mentioned, we've made some improvements that we're really excited to tell you about today. So I'm going to turn it over to Ella, who's going to dive in and tell you about the program.
Yeah, thanks, Marla. It's great to have you all here today. Thanks so much for joining us. So here is really just a brief overview, high level at our Green Lease Leaders program. So if you're new to the program, or maybe you've worked on it once before and you're coming back, here it is. So as Marla said, we started in 2014. This is the 10th year. And really the goal of this program is to set the standard for green leasing. So as we're getting into more of those building performance policies, needing to get to our net zero goals of buildings, green leasing is becoming very essential. And so the Green Lease Leaders program, in collaboration with the DOE, is really there to set those best practices, provide guidance, and help you on your way to implementing green leasing in all your portfolio and buildings. So just to clarify, we get this question a little bit, is how long does recognition last? So if you are able to be successful and get your recognition this year in 2024, how long would that be? And that's 3 years. So it is a no-cost application program. And when you get your recognition, you will hold it for 3 years before you'll need to reapply and re-get that recognition. Another question we get is, could we improve? So as you'll see in those little icons below, we have a silver recognition level, a gold recognition level, as well as a platinum recognition level. And so those are at different tiers and really represent different levels of how much you've implemented the practices in your portfolio. And if you want to, you are welcome to reapply every year or just get your industry or your company to the next level. So moving from silver to gold, you're welcome to do that any year you want to. And actually, we encourage everyone to get to platinum. That really is our goal. So as I just mentioned, there's those 3 recognition levels, and then there's also 3 application types. So we have our landlord, we have our tenants, and then the teams. So teams are those individual leasing transactions that maybe you're including more than just the owner and the tenant to create that win-win outcome, but you're also including the broker, or you're including the property manager. And they really have played an essential role in coming up with this well-done building, high performance plan. And so the team's transaction and application is a route that you can go for that extra partner in your recognition. So just to really briefly go over kind of what are those different tiers. So silver is to recognize foundational green leasing practices that are across your portfolio. So we're seeing that in standard lease form and corporate policies. The gold level is to see the execution of your green leasing practices in one executed lease. So for gold, you will need to have at least one building, one executed lease that shows all the credits and prereqs that you're applying for in a building transaction. And then platinum is moving beyond the environmental and getting into how is that building situated with the rest of the company, as well as the social impact. So seeing that environmental and social impact as intersectional and combined. I'll go to the next slide. So here is our overview of requirements. So we have those 3 levels of recognition, but just really quickly, so there are prerequisites and there are credits. And for the silver and gold applications, you'll see in our requirements section, there's 2 prereqs and 5 credits for each of those levels. But for platinum, there is 6 credits or 5 credits, depending on whether you are a landlord or a tenant. And then in our 3rd column, so you'll see that supporting documentation. And really, we're looking for the standard lease form, the executed lease, like I mentioned in our last slide, but also evidence of tracking and implementation. So how are you able to show that your fit out was completed? Or what is your building manager doing? Are they using a tracker to see, the standard fit out? Different examples of ways that you can show you've implemented the practices in your lease or in your corporate policies. And just real quickly, so we do want to see, since this is the Green Lease Leaders program, we want to see at least 3 of your credits having that standard lease form and the executed lease if you're going for gold. So we are really making sure that lease is kind of the primary focus and how you're showing that you're accomplishing these best practices. And I'll move next into some new reference guidance. So the changes that we've made are really just like Marla said, improvements, trying to add more clear language for you all as applicants so you're better able to apply to the program and have less questions. So that it means basically that we have an updated frequently asked questions section in our reference guides at the beginning. We also have some more guidance on what the high level requirements are, breaking that down into kind of a chart format you'll see. Then we also have some updates to the platinum credit, which is credit 13 and tenant credit 10 is now split into 2 credits. And that's really just to make it clear for what those differences are with resilience and then also the social equity. And then lastly, our tenant prerequisite 2 has some additional criteria. So there are some newer options for you to achieve that minimum energy efficiency fit out, and you'll see that there. But as always, please reach out to me or Marla if there's any questions that come up. You'll see the reference guide, and we're really hoping that this guidance is more applicable to you all. And also, I guess I almost forgot to mention, so before we've had some questions about certain lease type situations that maybe aren't accounted for, aren't very clear in the reference guide, how that would work for your situation. So that means triple net situations or multifamily. And now we have some specific callouts in the reference guide credits that you'll be able to see, if there's a certain case where that might be different, we're now mentioning that for you.
Hey, Ella. We've got a great question that I thought maybe we could go ahead and answer. Someone is asking if there's a baseline number of properties that you have to have green leasing in place in order to qualify. It's a good question.
Yeah, there is not currently. Yeah, so we ask about a percentage of leasing that you think is integrated or has this green leasing level across your portfolio. but it's really just meant to be an estimate. We are not counting that as part of your application credit or your score or anything like that. So it's really, the goal is to encourage you to increase green leasing across your properties, but currently it could be, for an executed lease, we just want that one executed lease.
Yeah, and just to be clear too, like the silver level is about your standard lease. Okay, so the idea is even at standard, like you could be brand new, just getting this into your standard lease. Maybe you don't even have it executed, but it's in your standard lease form. It's your starting point. So you can apply for silver recognition, when you show us that you've covered these things in your standard lease form. And then, as Alice said, then to move to gold, we really just want evidence of one lease. Again, you may have hundreds, you may have one, but if you've got it in your standard and you can show us one executed lease that covers the credits, then you can get gold.
Yeah, great question. So just to really give you an exciting new update on a new resource we have for 2024, here is a workbook preview. It looks like a lot of text, but actually I've seen some of you all who have applied before kind of create your own versions of a workbook. So we at Green Lease Leaders decided to make our own Excel-based tool for applicants to have as they are working on their applications, collecting all the right documents. So this is a workbook for landlords. It's for a tenant workbook, and then there's also a teams workbook. And you will be able to see in some of those tabs at the bottom that there's the silver, gold, and platinum tabs. So you can use those to see in really specific detail what are the requirements, what credits might you be qualified for, and then be able to keep track as you're going through this process, looking at the reference guide hand in hand with your workbook. But really the goal is just to make things clear and more simple for you all this year.
Yeah, we realize that anytime you put an Excel workbook in a PowerPoint presentation, it's a little, it looks like a lot, but I think you'll really enjoy using this workbook, and we don't need to see it. It's strictly a tool just for you to organize and think about, okay, if I've got this and this, do I have enough? And it'll just help you see what you have, organize what you need to collect, and show you if you're able to meet the credits or not. And we would love your feedback too on this, because we always want to make it better. So we'll check in with you guys after this go around to see how you like the workbook and if it worked out well for you.
Yeah, and that actually reminded me, Marla, that if you are applying for the first time ever, and maybe this workbook seems really overwhelming and the reference guide is a longer document, but it does have all the comprehensive information, there's actually a tool that we also have on our website called the Lease Audit Tool. You can look for that in our resources tab, just type it in the box, and you can put in actually your leasing practices. It'll ask you some questions. It's in kind of a interactive mode, and it will come out with what recognition level it would recommend for your practices based on your answers. So I really recommend, if you are not even at the level of understanding kind of where you want to go or what you might qualify for, you can use this workbook, but you can also use this lease audit tool. Again, it's on our website at greenleaseleaders.com. Okay, so this is our team workbook. And just going to briefly go over this because it is kind of different than our landlord and tenant workbooks, but it really is showing at the high level all of the credits that teams might be applicable for. And in the past, we haven't explained, I would say in super depth, the team's transaction application, but really you'll see that there's landlord credit one, tenant credit one. And so from both of those sides, if you are the landlord or you've had the tenant is the one doing this practice, you can kind of check off which of those credits you are qualifying for and then total those all up. So it's really just trying to give some more understanding of how the team transaction application works, and then where you can find those. Maybe you both are doing those practices, maybe just one of you, and you can better tally up those credits.
Yeah, and I want to talk about this just for a minute because we've got some questions in the chat about the team workbook, and we even someone asked about from the broker side. So this is the perfect way for brokers to be able to, brokers who are working on green leasing, like a team application is the perfect scenario for you because you're working with both the tenant and the landlord on the transaction. And you do have the ability, again, as Ella said, it's to select from both the tenant and the landlord credits. Because, sometimes you worked with the landlord here, you worked with the tenant here. So hopefully, because we don't have a dedicated reference guide, we're really hoping that this workbook will just be super helpful on any team applications. But we do highly recommend that you try this out with the workbook if you're a broker or maybe like a property management, third-party property management team. So anyone who's like, if your name isn't necessarily on the lease, but yet you are working to make green leasing transactions happen, the team application is a great possibility for you to get recognition for that work.
Yeah, another example is with the property manager. So maybe they're the ones doing the checklists for the turnover. For example, for multifamily properties, the property manager would be piloting and leading that effort of how the tenant turnover looks like, which is one of our prereqs for the tenant application. I see some additional questions in the chat. What do you think, Marla? Do you want to answer those now or wait till very end?
I've been answering some of them as they come through, but I think really quick, just making sure we know how they can find the workbook would be good.
Yes. Yeah. So you can go to our website. It's greenleaseleaders.com. It's also what our little icon on the left there in our team workbook is. And there is a tab on the right side called resources. So if you just click on that, type in our box workbook, or even just scroll down, there's kind of some preset options for the most popular resources on our page, but you will find the workbooks as well as the reference guides are linked right there at the top.
Yes, and I'm putting the landlord workbook, just an example, in the chat now. And if you're on the landlord, you click into the landlord page, you'll see the workbook there, or if you click on the tenant page. So it's really easy to find once you get in there. If you're on the page, you'll see it, or as Ella said, you can type it in and it'll come up.
Yeah, and we actually will also be linking to these resources in our follow-up email, where we'll be sharing the slides, we'll be sharing this recording, and then the go-to resources that you need and that we're mentioning for this webinar. Well, Marla, do you want to talk about our new assistance options for 2024?
I do, because we're super excited about this. So again, new this year, we're offering application reviews, official application reviews. Okay, so what this is, it's meant to provide that feedback on your completed application before the due date to give you time to make any corrections, or even, and some of you may have experienced this in the past, like sometimes we'll say, hey, we noticed this, you might even be able to go for platinum instead of gold, right? So, and sometimes as we're going back and forth, if we're trying to just do it by email, it can get confusing, and then there's more back and forth. So we really want to take that time to review your application and then have a conversation with you about it. So you're clear, we're good, you can go back, make your corrections, and then it's done. So that is our application review process. So we're going to have two different blocks of windows for you to be able to sign up for an application review. So the first one will be in early November for those early birds who are getting this done early. And we hope there's a lot of you considering getting this done early. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And then the second time period will be in January. So now just to confirm, you only get one slot per company because they are going to be limited. But we've got two different sort of time windows in order for you to pick a time slot. So you'll sign up for that specific date and time. the team will be on the call with you, either one or two of us, and we'll go through your application. Want to be perfectly clear though, your application needs to be completed and submitted on the portal at least 2 business days before your call time, because we have to be able to review it and get all our comments in. Okay, so you'll sign up for an official slot, and then we'll, within 48 hours of that, have your application all done, and then we'll talk through it and have that back and forth. And so hopefully you'll feel really good about it. It'll help optimize time on our end, and we'll all be happier at the end of the day. The time slots for you to sign up for the application reviews are not on our website just yet, but they will be on there soon. They'll be on the homepage. So we'll let you know. We'll send out emails when that comes up. It will be in the days ahead, probably next week. We'll get those up and running. The other thing that we're going to do this time is we're going to be hosting office hours. And throughout the application cycle. And we're doing this because there's we really want to encourage people to use those time blocks. A couple of different reasons. We want to make sure that everyone is clear. And if you've got questions, your questions are going to be the same as somebody else's questions. So being able just to have those conversations about certain situations and kind of work through those issues with, more people together, so we can all make sure we're on the same page and move forward. We're just, we really want to give people that opportunity. You don't even have to stay for the whole hour if you don't want to. Like, sign up for the time slot, get it on your calendar, pop in, ask your question, listen a little bit, and then pop out. It's all good. We're going to be there during those hours, whether anybody signs up or not. So please sign up for those. Bring us your questions. Another reason why we want to do this is because we love to give everybody the attention they deserve on this, because it can get confusing, and we get that. But we're expecting a record number of applicants this year. So we want to make sure that everybody gets that opportunity to have those conversations. And just trying to do emails back and forth can get confusing and time consuming, both for you and for us. So utilize those office hours. We really think that you'll find value to get your initial questions answered, and then sign up for an application review. And we really hope that helps make the process go very, very smoothly for you.
Carla, do you want to chat about if there is any proprietary information or concerns? How would they still attend office hours?
Yeah, that's a good point, because, we totally get it. Like, sometimes you can be like, hey, would you look at my lease? And if there's other people on, you may not want to sort of like, share your screen with your lease language. Like, we get there's proprietary information on that. But I think that, 98% of it can be done through, we have a lease clause that mentions this, again, just speak in general terms, and we'll be able to, like I said, get 90% of it. And even if you generalize, kind of what your lease, what your clause is saying, you're not sure if that qualifies. Again, that's probably something that somebody else, will help somebody else that's on that call tremendously as well. So let's all help each other. And we don't want it to be a proprietary issue. So we're not expecting you to share your leases with more, with people other than us. So we're not going to do that. But I think we can speak in generalization and really get 98% of it knocked out, and hopefully just make it super clear for you.
Yeah, I think that both of these options are excellent for this year, because office hours, maybe you have many questions about the reference guide. It's your first time. Well, you, instead of having to write up this really long email, all the bullet points, you can just bring those to office hours and we'll just freely answer them. And other people will be thinking the same things, just like Marla was saying. So it's a really good new thing we're offering, and you can join at any time, versus the application reviews that really has the limited slots. It's going to be super helpful to get that one-on-one feedback that we've never provided before, and there's no fee. But there are limited spots. We are not doing that for everyone. So just so you know, and be looking for those emails.
Yeah, and And then you might be thinking, why are you having those application reviews in November? Isn't that kind of early? And we'll talk about timeline in general in just a minute, so you know, because the portal is open now. So I think everybody probably has the gist of that it's open and ready to go. But we really want to encourage you to apply early. There's just a lot of reasons for that. Again, we're going to have record number this year. We want everybody to again have a smooth process. If you are kind of like waiting till that last minute in February to get it in, we may not be able to give you the attention that you might need or want, and we don't want that to happen. So anybody that can, again, as many people as possible, try to get it done before year end. Wouldn't that be nice to have just one thing sort of checked off your list before year end that you don't have to worry about in January? Because we know Q1 starts the joy of reporting season, right? And this is also new for this year. We've never done this before because we want to motivate people to apply early. If you do your application before year end, we're going to actually, there's one caveat, but we are going to let you announce your status, that you're an award winner. Like, you can go ahead and say, we are a Green Lease Leader Platinum winner for 2024. Now, the caveat is the only thing that you cannot do is just do a press release, right? Just out the press release. That's going to happen, all of us all together before that April 2nd official rollout and announcement of all the winners together. So that's the only thing that we ask that you not do, no press releases. But if you want to say, get that in your any kind of quarterly reporting or depending on if you do your ESG report in Q1 and you report early, or if you want to use it for GRESB or whatever you want to use it for, like Q1, like you're ready to use it, and you can insert it into those things, just not the press release. Otherwise, it'll be Q2 with everybody else. So would love to encourage you to, if you're ready, if you've got it all together, would love for you to go ahead and apply so we can get some of those applications locked in before year end. That would be just peachy and make all of us very happy.
Yes. And I was just going to add, there's a typo on that screen, and it's actually April 2nd, 2024, as you get into that.
Yes, thank you. It is 2024. I know. What day is it? 2024. I know, it's hard to believe we're in the 2024 Green Lease Leaders cycle. All right, so let's look at the timeline and at least the major milestones. So as we said, the application portal is open officially. And today's the 5th, we're doing the webinar. And as you can see, sort of through this loose calendar, we've got, when office hours and application reviews are. We are asking that, again, if you want to be one of those early birds, to grab a time slot for an application review for November, please sign up by October 20th. And again, you'll get this in your email, and you'll have these slides, so it'll be documented. But just make a little note, just make a decision, and if you want to do that, we'll just want you to sign up for those time slots by October 20th. Then in November, we're going to have those application review calls and office hours. We'll continue office hours into January, and then the deadline for that second review sign up will be in January. So I hope that makes sense. Again, there's like the 2 little time slots, and we want you to sign up before those deadline dates so we can have those all lined up. And again, once those slots are gone, they're gone. Office hours, again, if we're sort of going through and if we're getting more, if we need to add more office hours, we might add more office hours. But at this point, we're not planning on adding any additional application review time slots. So make sure and grab that. Okay, and here's another important note, February. So the portal closes February 16th. So if you're not starting this until February 15th, that may not work. So as I I don't want to sound like a broken record, but because of the volume we're expecting this year, if you're kind of like really late in the game, we might not be able to give you, you know, the back and forth that it sometimes takes with this. And we really want to be able to do that because we want you to get this recognition, trust us. So please make note, like February 16th is it. Like you got to be in and done by the 16th because we won't be extending that deadline. And then we're going to be in February and March, we'll be notifying again any of those remaining leaders that did not get their recognition before year end. Second wave, everybody's notified. And then we have the official announcement and celebration in conjunction with the Better Buildings Summit, April 2nd through the 4th. So, and you'll get more and more details about that. And there'll also be some other fun things coming along with the Better Building Summit. So again, we're gonna really celebrate these 10 years, which will be lots of fun. So we really plan on your calendars to attend the Better Building Summit this year, because it's always a fantastic conference. And then we're just really going to do some special stuff around green leasing for the 10th year. And we also want to recognize all of the winners. So mark your calendars. Okay. So that was kind of a lot. So what questions do we have? Let's see. So I'm looking at the chat. Ella, is there some in particular that you've been seeing that we want to make sure that we circle back to?
Yeah, there are some questions about, is there a benefit to submitting annually versus waiting every 3 years? Do you want to speak to some potential reasons you might apply more often?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. The biggest one is if you want to move up a level. So let's say last year you submitted silver because you didn't have that executed lease yet, but you had your standard lease done. So you got in and you got silver. Well, you don't have to wait. And again, I'm going to clarify this. I put this in the chat, but let's just get an example. So let's say you are a 2022 silver winner. So then your 3 years are 22, 23, 24. So then you would potentially apply again for the 2025 application year. Now, that said, you were silver and now you've got that executed lease. So you can absolutely go ahead and reapply in 2023 because, you know, you've got the lease, you've got it, and then because you can move up a level. So you can absolutely jump in, reapply to move yourself up the ladder to get gold and to get platinum. If you're just going to be on the same level, there's really no benefit to, because your recognition is going to be the same. Maybe it keeps you at the top of the list for that year. If that's important to you, sure, absolutely. Happy for you to go ahead and do it. But we really encourage people to do it when they feel like they can move up the ladder on the recognition levels.
Yeah, one other point with that is some people have applied, maybe they have green leasing, you know, quote, figured out for one subset of their portfolio. So maybe they've piloted it in all their industrial properties, and now they've moved into their multifamily properties, or
Yes.
maybe they have warehouses with different clientele, and now they're going into data centers. You can work with us and go to those office hours, ask us how maybe you could start putting those practices into your other asset types, and you can gain recognition for that as well. So it just is really up to you on how you think it would be valuable for your company, but that's really where, you know, we're here to provide that expertise and help you accomplish. And especially as kind of mentioning the high performance needs and our goals to get to net zero for some of us, or those building performance policies and other things coming up. I definitely understand how maybe you are thinking about how are you putting it into all of your different asset types. So that's another way you could.
It is. I'm really glad you mentioned that, Ella. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because many of you cover more than one sector, and yeah, love to have you do it on across your different sectors so you can have that representation. So yes, we are Green Lease Leader in our multifamily and our industrial.
We had a question earlier on about wanting us to explain a little bit more the platinum level. So could you talk to a little bit about what the social impact is there? And then we also have, as part of that, the action plan that's required for performance. Do you want to
Yeah,
speak?
I'll jump in, and then Ella, you cover anything I might miss. But the goal of the platinum is that it moves forward a little bit more into things like the social impacts, equity. It also covers like resilience. And as Ella mentioned, we have hopefully made those credits much more clear this year because we've separated them. And you might say, well, I don't have anything in my lease specifically related to resilience, but it's okay if you have, like, again, you can see from our requirements, it's okay if you've got a corporate policy, if you've got best practices, if you've got things in writing saying we are doing this. And on the platinum, there is, like, we do want to see proof that it's not just a sentence you typed out. It's yeah, and here's an example of how we track that. So it operates a little bit outside of the lease document specifically, but it's indicating you are doing these things. That you're saying there's a checkbox for, like, 4 out of 10 or something like that, and you check the ones and you sort of show your backup that shows, yep, it's a policy, and here's some evidence that we are tracking those things. And that's what you can gather to help you sort of get to that next platinum level. Did I miss anything there, Ella?
Yeah, I just want to say for everyone, I highly recommend checking out the reference guides as really the most comprehensive way to understand the different credits, the different requirements, and then the details. So in a reference guide, there's the intent, there's the requirements, and then there's some examples as well. So we've worked hard to find different examples from other industries, from other companies that we have said this qualifies, even some sample lease language that's there for you to compare your lease and then the lease language that we would accept. So there's a lot of resources in the reference guide, more than just the requirements. So please do check that out if you have questions about some of the specific credits or even the recognition levels.
Yeah, and related to that, Sarah Lena has a question about the indicators on the prereqs for platinum regarding whether they need to be in the lease or if they can be in a policy. So I think if you look at the workbook, that will be very clear. Hope so. That's our goal for that to be super clear in the workbook. And I don't know if you want to go back to that slide real quick, if that's helpful.
Yeah.
But it will say, you'll see where it's there's like and or yeah, right there. So for instance, on the prerequisite, it does say prereq 1, it can be the standard lease form or the policy or an online resource. So again, look for where it says ors, then you go, ooh, I've got the corporate policy, kind of circle that and check. Now, but if you look at prereq 2A, which is a multifamily one, it has to be, no, multifamily is 2B, sorry, 2A, it does need to be in the lease form. So the workbook hopefully will tell you and make it super clear, where it has to be in the lease form. Now, I do also want to reiterate, and this is in the instructions at the top of our workbook as well, because we can't let people get Green Lease Leader recognition if they're not giving us a lease. So there's a minimum, and you can pick which ones they are, but there's a minimum of 3 credits that have to be directly from the lease. And I just want to say too, this is just a little plug. Please make sure, again, I'm going to say it again, 1 lease, right? We just want to see 1 executed lease that has all the things. We can't take this lease for this credit, this lease for this credit, right? We're trying to say holistically, 1 lease, a minimum of 3 credits, and then if you've got some policies and other resources that are allowable to back up other things. All good. Please, 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 on your lease, if it's like section 7B, like highlight that part that is what you think meets that credit. Okay, like we need a roadmap and we need it highlighted, like here it is. So that's just a little PSA. Please highlight.
And Marla, you're talking about when you go and apply, like
when you
you're
apply,
providing your documents.
Yeah, I jumped ahead.
Add
When
in
you're
the
actually
highlight.
doing your application, when you're gathering your materials. Yeah.
Yes. Someone asked, is the recognition at the vehicle asset sector or company level? Great question.
That is a great question. It's at the company level. But again, you can say ABC company, and if you want to put like industrial division or something below it, or ABC company multifamily, if you want to do that. But it is designed as a company recognition. Again, particularly because all this is based on the standard lease. There's an assumption that if you've got it as your standard, that's your starting point. We're not saying that you're guaranteeing it's going in every single lease from here on to eternity. That's not real life, right? But you've got a standard, it's your starting point, and it's in as much as you can get it in, right? So that's your standard. And then again, we're only asking to see one lease as an example. And maybe you have only got one, but if it's in your standard, you're going to get more and more and more and more over time. So it's a proxy, right? And because it's like the way that you're doing business, same thing with where there's best practices that are allowable or policies. It's your corporate policy. It's how you're doing business as a general rule. Again, it's a best practice. We know things happen on occasion in places, but as a best practice, as a company, even if it might be for a specific fund, and that's okay too, it can be at the fund level. Or again, if you're a REIT and you're a couple of different sectors, it can be at the sector level or it can be at the company level, just depending on what works best for your organization. But it is meant to be that high level recognition versus, just a asset level recognition. And I do want to go back to, I saw a couple of questions related to GRES. So currently, you don't necessarily get a point just for being a green lease leader. What you do get points for is having green leasing. And again, that percentage of estimation of like how much of your portfolio is under a green lease. So while today you don't get it for a green lease leader recognition, it still is very valuable to the program together because, right, this is like how you move this ball, how you get this embedded into your organization to where you can continue to do more and more and get that GRES credit. So hopefully that makes sense. Lots of good questions.
Okay, so one of the questions was, how long does it take to complete the audit tool questionnaire? I would say, having taken it.
Yeah, what do you think?
You do need to know the answers.
It's good,
so
good tip.
Taking the questionnaire is not challenging and it will not take a long time. I would say 2 to 5 minutes, but you might need to look for some of those answers and talk to some of staff members.
Yeah, you might I would start with your standard lease form, like make sure you have a sense of what's in your standard lease form. But you know what, like take the quiz. Even if you haven't started, it will help you know where you do have gaps and like, oh, I'm not sure, I got to go look that one up. It's all good. These are just meant to be tools to help you, even if you just want help, just getting started from the beginning. Jump in. It definitely won't take you long to fill out the tool. But as Ella said, it might help you go, oh, I think we have that, but I need to go find it. Or no, we definitely have all that. Or maybe you don't. And I can't stress enough too, and I know a lot of you on this call, and some of you have done this before. I can't stress enough, particularly if you are early in this game, of how valuable the landlord and tenant reference guides are, even if you are early in the process. Or even if maybe you've done some things and you're going to apply this year, love it. Keep using that reference guide as like ways to help you continue to green your lease and like sort of what's next. Because with all of the sample clauses we have in there, it's a really great roadmap to be able to help you on this journey.
Yeah, there's another question about the executed lease. I know this has come up before, but what year does it need to have been executed in?
That's a really great question. Thank you for bringing that up. So we do want it to be a lease within the last 12 months. So like we're not necessarily looking for, a lease from 2020 for this exercise, right? Because again, like that feels a little bit more like maybe it was just a one-time thing. So now, I mean, if you've got some sort of extenuating circumstance, let us know, reach out and we'll look at it. But we really want it to be a lease that was signed within the last 12 months, if at all possible.
Okay, kind of a follow-up question is the lease, if the language is in a lease amendment, does that still qualify as the lease?
Yeah, it does. It can be a lease amendment. It can be, and you can redact things. I would want to sort of just understand that, be very clear that it's an amendment and what it's, attached to. But yeah, it can be a lease amendment. I know some people actually put their green provisions as an amendment or even as a rider, and that's okay too. That rider works. But just so it's clear that, we're really looking for a legally binding agreement of some sort. So as long as that qualifies and it's part of that process, or even if, for instance, the sustainability contact is a question that comes up a lot. So even if your sustainability contact for both parties, and we are looking for both parties, it's the easiest thing, but I could go on for the next 20 minutes about sustainability contact. I won't do that. But like even if that's referenced in the lease, and then it is sort of a separate separate piece of paper that goes with the lease in the welcome packs, like that's okay, right? So again, we just want to verify that the other party is getting that information, and that information is transpiring between landlord and tenant. So I hope that makes sense. And again, those are the kind of questions that we want you to bring to office hours, so we can look specifically to see like how your situation is, and we can talk through it and give everyone that guidance.
Yeah, and then one more from that is with the last 12 months requirement, is that the lease commencement date or the actual signature?
That's a good question. I mean, generally lease commencement date, we might have a little flexibility on that. We just want it to be a reasonably recent lease and not something old. But as a base, let's go with lease commencement.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to drop in the chat a link to our frequently asked questions web page on our Green Lease Leaders website. So as more questions come up as well, please check into this website, or feel free to email us at our emails. So ella.wetlison and then marla.tolheimer@imt.org. Oh, you're right. It's marla@imt.org.
So much easier. marla@imt.org. Yeah, and reach out and like we said, please consider applying early. Please attend office hours when you have questions. Again, we're not saying we don't want to answer your emails. We do, but it's going to be a lot, so it may take us a little bit to get back to you. So you know that we can, in an office hours situation, we'll get your question answered. So highly encourage you to take advantage of that, and more than once, like come to office hours as much as you want, and get signed up for your application reviews. And we can't wait to talk to you through all of those means and get your applications in this year.
Amazing. Well, I just put in our email, and then also just a reminder that we're going to be sending out this recording and resources that we mentioned throughout this presentation to you all soon. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.